In a couple of months, 13 new large enterprises of agro-industrial complex opened in our country, but before we tell about them, let's remember the 90s, when our country lost almost the entire agro-industrial complex. In the 1990s, another attempt to solve all problems in a revolutionary way resulted in the transition of the agro-industrial complex from long stagnation to the collapse of the material and technical base and infrastructure, and as a consequence led to a sharp decline in production. And in order to restore the agricultural sector and take the position of the world leader in food exports, it took a lot of measures and efforts, and Russia succeeded. The transitional years played a decisive role in the fate of the Russian agricultural industry and caused widespread damage on all fronts. The privatization of agricultural land began in 1991, which created the peasant farm sector and expanded the opportunities for citizens to use land plots. Perhaps the positive effects of agrarian reforms ended there. Agrarians incurred losses because they were not ready to work in a market economy, and even without government support. As a result, in 1996, farms of all categories of agricultural land produced less than in 1990, in the whole sector by 37%, crop production by 15%, and livestock production by 50%. This led to a frenzied rise in prices, just imagine almost 14 times. There could not be any development, because even in order to simply survive, most farms had to cover the minimum necessary costs, and they did it by increasing debts and reducing labor costs. Thus, the volume of cash injections into the agro-industrial complex sector decreased about 18 times. By the end of the 90s in the country about 2 times reduced the number of cattle, 15 million hectares of sown areas of sub-grain crops, not cultivated almost 30 million hectares of agricultural land, more than 2 times reduced the tractor and vehicle fleet in rural areas, 10 times the use of mineral fertilizers. And as a result, our country has become one of the largest importers of agricultural products. This was a real tragedy for a state with vast tracts of agricultural land. But as the saying goes, if it wasn't for luck, it was for misfortune. This is what can be said about the crisis of 1998, which was a turning point for the country, when the changed ruble exchange rate became a lifeline for Russian agriculture. Thus, from 1990 to 1998, the gross agricultural output index fell by 44%, while from 1999 to 2007 it rose by almost 40%. Of course, such a result was helped by state support. It played a huge role in the formation of the agricultural industry. In 2005, a priority project for the development of the agro-industrial complex was established to revitalize the domestic agro-industrial complex. The very fact of adoption of such a project was perceived by many agricultural producers as a landmark event, as a chance for a change of priorities and increased attention to the problems of the agrosphere. In 2 years, Russia's agricultural budget was increased by 40% at once. As Agriculture Minister Gordeev said in 2007, and I quote, "The agricultural sector should become one of the engines of the national economy, along with the fuel and energy complex, transportation, modern science-intensive and high-tech industries." Initially, the main goal of the project was to provide the population with food products of own production, general improvement of living standards and the state of the country's economy. But after showing good results, it became a state program. Effective measures of the state program, active participation of the state in the distribution and redistribution of income, increasing the level of financing of the agricultural industry, as well as preferential lending and state insurance of risks have made the agro-industrial complex of Russia a leader in many indicators. In August 2021, Russia became the leader in grain shipments abroad, surpassing the United States, Canada, Australia and other exporting countries. In 2022, Russia set a record gross grain harvest. The country harvested 157 million tons of grain, almost 30% more than in 2021, including wheat 104 million tons plus 37%. Russia ranked first among wheat exporting countries and 18th in the world ranking of food exporters in 2022. Thus, the agro-industrial complex demonstrates steady growth and remains one of the main driving forces of the domestic economy. It has a direct impact on food security and sustainable socio-economic development of Russia, the provision of which will remain a paramount task in the long term. Well, now let's talk about the new agribusiness and food processing companies that opened in July-August 2023. Our agriculture continues to grow steadily. From January to July, the index of agricultural production amounted to 101.4% of the corresponding period of last year. According to the publications of the site Metatus, for July-August 2023, 13 new large and modernized enterprises of agro-industrial complex and food industry were opened with capital investments in each more than 100 million rubles. Smaller productions were not included in the survey, including the launch of 5 new major facilities with investments of more than 1 billion rubles each. The total amount invested in the projects is almost 31 billion rubles. So, the Domati group of companies, which is implementing a lamb production project in the North Caucasus Federal District, has launched canned food production. The new project was implemented as part of the modernization of Russia's largest mutton processing plant in the city of Cherkassk, in the Karachay-Cherkassk Republic. The canned food production capacity is 5.5 th. Tons of meat products are up to 20 mln. Cans a year. Investments in construction and equipment amounted to 231 million rubles. The first line of the plant for processing oilseed crops and producing rapeseed oil was launched in the settlement of Zalari. The new production facility was opened on the basis of LLC Zabaikalsky Agro Holding. The capacity will be 50,000 tons of raw materials per year. The company uses the method of pressing and extraction of raw materials. The press shop has started its work at the enterprise. It is planned to process up to 150 tons of raw materials per day. Investments in the project exceeded 400 million rubles. The new elevator complex with a capacity of over 90,000 tons per year was opened in the Marshansky district of the Tambov region. Investments in the project amounted to 675 mln rubles. The new elevator was built on the site of the old one in 2 years. With the commissioning of the elevator complex in the Marshansky municipal district, the total storage capacity of the Agro-Invest Group investor in the Tambov region reached more than 200,000 tons. Practically every 10th ton of Tambov grain is stored here. The first stage of the Chegem Agro Greenhouse Complex for the production of protected horticultural products was launched in the Kabardino-Balkar Republic. The greenhouse complex is located in the Chechemsky district of the Republic. The first phase of the enterprise with an area of 37 hectares will provide jobs for 461 residents of the region, and its capacity will be 19,000 tons of tomatoes a year. The total budget of the project is 9 billion rubles. The official launch of Agroeco's Osatrovsky pig breeding complex took place in the Voronezh region. This is a major investment project of the holding company in the territory of Verkhnymont district. The farm became the 36th pig breeding site in the Voronezh region, which will specialize in the production of marbled pork, among other things. Investments in construction amounted to almost 2.5 billion rubles. The first phase of a dairy farm with a voluntary milking system was opened in the village of Kudrinskaya in Tatemsky district. The new barn has a capacity of 300 cows. The investment amounted to 235 million rubles. Almost everything on the farm is automated. Milking is carried out with the help of 4 robots. The cows themselves choose a time that is convenient for them and approach the rig. For feeding, animals also use the technique of a special mixer dispenser. Feeding takes place 2 times a day. Water is supplied by automatic drinkers. Brush pendulums and fans are installed for animal comfort. The Domati group of companies has launched a parental flock unit of a turkey breeding reproducer with a capacity of 64,000 birds in the Isetsky district of the Tyumen region. Thus, all poultry breeding facilities of the breeder are launched. The new poultry block consists of 5 sites, each with 5 poultry buildings, 4 for breeding stock and 1 for males. The total investment in the project amounted to 6 billion rubles. Construction of a feed mill was completed in the village of Krasnormaysky in the Kachkarovsky district of Mordovia. The investment project for the construction of a plant for the production of granulated compound feed for pigs and turkeys with a capacity of 10 tons per hour was implemented by the agro firm, Norov. The capacity of the plant is 10 tons per hour. Note that the feed of the main plant will fully cover the needs of the Norov Group's own enterprises. Investments in the project amounted to 291 mln rubles. APH Mirator, the leading full-cycle agro-industrial holding in Russia, opened a breeding center in Voroshnevo, Kursk region, for the production of agricultural seeds with a capacity of 27,000 tons per year. The complex specializes in the treatment and dressing of seeds of cereals, leguminous crops and perennial grasses. Seeds of wheat, barley, soybean, corn, sunflower, rape, ryegrass, fescue, clover and alfalfa serve as a raw material base. The center is expected to reach full capacity as early as 2023. Investments in the construction of the center amounted to 847 million rubles. The opening of the largest in Zarinsky district dairy complex Yanova took place. The built cattle breeding complex is designed for a herd of more than 6,200 heads. According to the plan, they expect to produce more than 35,000 tons of milk. As the company's managers told Today, 250 people will work here. The investment in the whole project amounted to 7 billion rubles. A complex for receiving, sorting and drying grain was opened in the village of Chernaya Rechka, Sapozhkovsky district. Construction of the complex began in 2022. The grain dryer is equipped with domestic equipment of Melinvest company. The capacity of the complex is 100 tons of grain per hour. In the next 3 years, they also plan to build a granary for 30,000 tons of grain. 216 million was invested in the construction. Rubles. Agro-holding Rusko-Pol launched a new feed mill in the Nizhny Novgorod region. This plant will be capable of producing 280,000 tons of fodder per year. This is effectively a doubling of the plant's capacity. The new production facility in Pavlova will provide feed for the poultry houses that the company is establishing in the region. The volume of investments in production exceeds 800 mln Rubles. A new greenhouse complex with a capacity of 9,000 tons of vegetables per year has started operating in Saransk. Rost, which is the investor, has invested about 2.5 billion in the project. Rubles. As a result, an 8-hectare greenhouse was built in 2 years and 124 new jobs were created.